freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and today the Moose is running loose. A very esteemed guest. Before I bring him in, let me bring in my usual partners in crime. Patrick McDonald is here. Hello, Patrick.
What's going on, gang? I mean, we've had some great guests on this podcast: Michael Block, Ricky Fowler, Taylor Fritz, but they're all second fiddle to the Moose, I think.
Colin Morikawa. Yeah, they all run a distance behind Joe Musso. Kyle Porter is here. KP, hello.
Having mic issues as usual. Wouldn't be a First Cut pod without me having mic issues. We're talking about this off air, but Patrick and the Moose need to go tailor the tape on their hair product.
Joe Musso, CBS Sports HQ anchor, founder and president of the Minsiders. That is a Minwoo Lee fan club, all around great guy, Joe Musso. Thank you very much for coming on.
Well, you have laid some lofty expectation out in front, and I can't wait to disappoint everybody. It's Malin and Getz number 2 up top.
I don't even
and as it goes for the Minsiders, we're working on the LLC. We're working on a lot of the marketing and the branding. And I think, Patrick, you can speak to, I think we stoked a bit of the fire in Minnie's comments yesterday. So anybody looking for concert t-shirts with Minwoo's scheduling, they might be on the way. We can't confirm or deny.
Well, I think I got to give Joe credit, Patrick, because he was way out in front of the Minwoo thing. Like everybody's in now, right? Everybody's like, oh, Minwoo's the man. Joe already finished the race. He was cooling down.
I'm not like, it gives me great pride when I hear you guys talk about my beautiful boy. I mean, to steal from the great Rick Gehman, when I hear you talk about my beautiful boy now in such a light, it's not like I was there first thing. It's a welcome aboard. So anyone who wants to become an insider is applications will be reviewed, but it's a very loose process.
I like
Did
that.
you see
Gotta be referred?
He is he's crowdsourcing a logo. So Minwoo is. So if
it's got to be the wraparounds, right?
Yeah.
Well, so he posted this on, I think it was on Instagram, maybe a day or two ago. Yeah, Joe's ready to rock and roll. If you're watching on YouTube, he has donned the Minwoo sunglasses, and he is crowdsourcing a logo. He wants it to be kind of chef related, maybe a little woozy. But I mean, if you can be part of the logo creation process, that would live on. It'll probably be on his bag. Hey, it might be on his shirt. Who knows what happens and what he does with it.
That's true. Just I guess to button up the Minwoo, I guess if we wanted to date Minsiders and the entire movement, Rochester last year, I walked with Minnie, and you guys, I mean, a couple pods ago, you were talking, I believe there were Riz ratings happening and things of the sort, or I believe buckets of Riz, if I could pull a quote.
My wife is not proud of me.
Buckets of Riz has now been immortalized in GIF that will be out throughout the season on a regular basis on Twitter. But Rochester had a couple minutes before one of our hits to get back to set, had probably an hour because of how far we had to get back to set. But like, I found myself late because I was enthralled with every step of Minwoo. Like, it was the way he swings the club to be up close. You feel it in your feet when he makes contact with the ball. And then everything between that and the next shot is captivating as well. So like, it was big time stuff. Threw an Instagram out there. Minnie liked it, asked for the video, love at first sight type thing.
Minnie's crowdsourcing a lot of stuff. Two things real quick, Rick. I did the weight to swing speed ratio in normal sport 3. Minwoo's he's in my top 5. It's like Minwoo, Gordon Sargent, Cam Champ, obviously, Rory, and I can't remember who my 5th one was. And then Minwoo also has one of my favorite tweets of all time. It was, I think it was a response to, this was maybe summer of 2021, actually. And he was kind of not a big name yet. Maybe he's still not a big name. Maybe he's just a big name to us, but he had played well in maybe the Scottish Open or one of those summer events. And Brandel had tweeted out a video. And he responded and said, "Thanks, Dr. Brandel," which is hilarious. Or thanks, Dr. Chambly. I caught that one flush. And
Flush,
I love that phrase, flush, flush. That was the first time I've been doing this 10 years, first time I'd ever heard it. And now I say it all the time. I mean, when other people hit, not when I hit.
That's pretty good. I also, Joe, I want to pick your brain on a couple of items. First off, just a couple of anecdotes. You are, I think I might have said this the other day, you're probably not, of the non-golfer rankings, you're probably the most referenced person on this show, right? There's just a lot of Joe Musso references. I compared it to, in Seinfeld, Kramer's friend Bob Sacamano, who you never see, but he talks about him all the time. We are blessed with actually being able to see you in person here. But yeah, I think you are easily the most referenced non-golfer on the show.
Well, to be a friend of the podcast and sometimes contributor, we're gonna take Phoenix, and that's gonna be its own thing. The First Cut faithful turned on me, and then by the end of the week we had them, which can only and that makes me respect the First Cut faithful even more, because like we're not just letting anybody on our show here. But to your point, I consume this show as a listener and a viewer more regularly than I even think about like having my opinion sought after. So to hear you guys, when I do get the little tip of the cap of the nod, it means a ton. I like to jump in the comments on our entire CBS family of podcasts, stoke the fire, ask a question, because my chair at CBS, I take very seriously, but I can sort of blur that line and ask the question not as seriously in different spaces, this being one of them. So very excited to be here today, and hopefully upon my board review, maybe in the future.
Should we give the people like just what Joe does on a day-to-day basis? Because I think,
who are you?
No, not that, but like who I think people
September 14th, 1990.
hear you on the First Cut or see the Phoenix thing, and they're like, wait, who's Joe Musso again?
Anchor, CBS Sports, CBS Sports HQ, CBS Sports Network, anywhere that the I is, I am. Just came up with that. So that's sort of we're going to clip that so I can remember it, because I don't remember things well. I just say them well. But literally like anywhere that we're having a conversation, I like to lead that conversation, but on a nightly basis here during the football season, pre and post game of our NFL coverage. So if you're streaming the 425 game on CBS on Paramount Plus, instead of getting 60 minutes, you get Joe Musso and Tony Romo for about 10 minutes, followed by an extended conversation, full highlights from throughout the day. So I liken it to our nightly recap show. My day starts around 4 o'clock, usually ends when the clock hits 0 and then the conversation stops. But I would describe myself as a host for CBS. Like the bullet point there being host for CBS, with my focus being NFL football, PGA Tour golf.
Yeah. And I think it is interesting. NFL Sundays, like when me and the kids are winding down watching the 4 o'clock game or whatever, I always think about how, man, Joe's got a lot ahead of him, like he's got a long day and night ahead of him. But you do a great job. And
Thank you.
Rick and I have always enjoyed being on site, doing sets together, doing tournaments together. Like that is it's such a blast. And I think that Rick probably has a greater appreciation, and Patrick and I certainly have a greater appreciation for how hard it is to host and how easy you make it look. And it's been a ton of fun to do that together.
I appreciate those words, and I think the on-site is a perfect example of I guess to be more heady about my responsibility. It's like thought generation, and then the bridge between thought generation and synthesizing that into a concise question to get you to say the thing we were just talking about. I don't want to be like, hey, we were standing by 14, and sometimes it calls for that. Other times it's like, hey, let's operate in this sort of esoteric space of, we know we talked about that. You don't know when I'm giving it to you, but it's going to come up somehow. So just trying to make the previous conversation feel organic is, I think, where I'm at in terms of the sharpening of the skill set right now.
Rick, the thing that Joe does really well, and this is going to sound insane to people who haven't done it, but he talks to you with his eyes, like when you're on set. Damon Hack used to do this on Golf Channel when I did Morning Drive a couple of times. You're like, I don't understand how he's talking to me right now, because he's saying something else.
Yeah,
but he's talking to me, and Joe does that very well. And I think that is what has allowed us to have fun, but also like chemistry of like, okay, going back and forth and getting after each other. And Joe does bring things out of you that, but also directs traffic at the same time, which, as you know, Rick, is it's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, that along with putting everybody in the best position to succeed. So Patrick, that's the way that I try to do this. Joe Musso does a great job of it with a million voices in his ears, but like, I'm never going to ask Mark Immelman to dive into the strokes gained mechanics.
I wish you would, actually.
X, Y,
You
and
should.
Z.
You gotta know who wants to talk about what. You know?
Right. Who wants the ball in this moment? And you know, I try to do that here, Patrick, right? Like, you are very much finger on the pulse of everything that's going on. You know more about live golf and the structure and format of that than anybody I know. And that's a compliment. I mean, it's just like those types
Is
of
it
things.
though?
I don't know. I mean, it's his job. So yes, it is a compliment.
Yeah.
And
Dating markets have dried up for Patty, so I'm into live golf now.
so those things, Patrick, are like very inside baseball type things that not everybody realizes is going on, but like are very important.
I do
Yeah,
have
and I
some
think that-
higher ups in the Deloitte ecosystem if you're ever wanting to.
Oh, we can. Did you see the EY news too? They just cut their partner class by 10%.
I saw that.
But of course,
It's
Tough scene.
tough week for the consultants. Let me tell you. But I that kind of goes back on just like experience, and I'm always like super interested to ask someone how they ended up where they did, because everyone's path is just so different. Like all four of ours just to get to this point right now. So
Definitely.
I guess Joe, I know you're a Northwestern guy. So I assume you're
Northwestern
yours was more
undergrad. Northwestern undergrad. We've got the Illinois Wesleyan lid up there, which we paid no bills with. Pre-NIL, Lord only knows what the Division III money would have been like. But Division III football undergrad at Illinois Wesleyan, proud Titan.
Okay.
Captained their junior and senior year, played wide receiver coming out of the slot. Knew I wanted to move on within the crucible of sports marketing, but like writing tool was always there. Double majored writing and business at Wesleyan. I know everyone's super interested in all of this. And then went back after a year and a half at Comcast Sportsnet, learning line production, being a production assistant, got my master's year at Northwestern. And then it was, do you want to continue to have the time of your life living in the city of Chicago with your best friends and get into PR, or go back to Comcast and hold a higher position there, associate produce, move on to production? Or do you want to try this thing that you know you want to try and take a leap? So at 26, 25, I moved to Lincoln, Nebraska with nobody.
Baby.
Did 2 years covering the Huskers, GBR. A big news coming out if they can land Raiola here. Number one commit, quarterback, flip him from Georgia to Nebraska, cooking with gas.
Wow.
Big news coming.
Wow.
I understand all of those words, but not the sentence whatsoever.
Gotcha. Yeah. No. We're piecemealing my entire history here, Rick. If you'd allow me to just
I love it.
throw some ellipses in, I'd appreciate that.
Giddy
No, but 2 years in Nebraska, met my wife. That was the biggest takeaway from Nebraska. Also sharpened the tool a little bit. Moved to Sacramento for 2 years. Covered Warriors championships there, NBA finals, Sacramento Kings, Raiders in Oakland, 49ers in Santa Clara.
Bang, bang, Niner gang.
And then December 9 was 4 years with CBS Sports Digital here and CBS Sports as a whole now. And it's been an amazing 4 years. And I can guarantee a couple more and hopefully decades beyond that, because I've loved the work I've been able to do and the way things have grown. But that's a short story of where I was and where I am now. And thrilled to be on the First Cut podcast if we haven't lost everybody already.
Is this Raiola kid? Is his dad?
Yeah. So that's
Nebraska.
Yes.
Okay.
So Dominic Raiola, I mean, all-time great. Husker way predates me, but I think this whole portal thing, I mean, I don't even want to get started on the portal right now.
Oh no, let's go.
I know we have
Let's do it.
other sporting inefficiencies to address here, but things are getting wild, and maybe they told him, because Matt Rule came out a couple weeks ago and was like, you got to pay $2 million in the portal for a 5-star quarterback now, just like plain and simple. So my thought is,
Which is sick.
there was a booster who heard that, brought some of that Nebraska Runza money, if anybody from Nebraska is listening, and they're about to go buy the number one quarterback and try and change things as the Big Ten gets even deeper.
Damn. You know, I do have a
Oh, there it is.
Oh.
You know how I talk with my eyes? I'm
Wow.
talking to that DB right there, Rick.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh, what a pull!
I love the thin wristbands. I bet that was a Patrick McDonald play as well.
Yeah, that was.
You
That was
think I played football?
yeah, now
you
thin
did.
wristband. That was bicep band era, and you see them on both the knees and elbows. So,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, that
The
is so,
utility
incredible.
there, I'm not sure, but
That's
false-
also the era
false
of
security.
the wide shoulder pads,
yeah,
the Eddie George pads.
Yeah, we were playing in a little bigger shoulder pad there, no doubt. But it was helmets had gotten a lot better. That helmet that's behind me is the helmet that's on my head there, I think. And not to go too deep here into the safety of the game, but played in a safer era than the pads might indicate.
What's the why 6?
To be honest with you, it was I played. Here we go. Let me paddle. Played varsity sophomore year in high school, and my number was 9, and the quarterback was 9. So I was like, let's flip it upside down, and then never changed it. So
Nice.
Rick, what were you in baseball?
majority 11.
Why?
11.
oh, not sticks.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think growing up, most of the time I just got like whatever the smallest jersey was, which was like the lowest number, right? So it would be like 1, and then you finally get to a point where you can choose your number, and I like the aesthetics of 2, solo 1. So like I like the way that looks, but it's not the number 1, which makes you look like you're the smallest kid on the team.
Correct.
And just like it, so 11 ended up being the number that I wore most frequently.
Short anecdote here. I was promised, again, high level recruitment at the Division III level. I was promised number 6 going into college. I show up first day of freshman camp. 81 is hanging on my locker, which not only made me look tiny because the number covered the entirety of my body, but 81 was just worn for 4 years by a kid who rewrote the record books. So shout out Martin Seisel. Couldn't really carry that torch. Did to a certain extent. I mean, we found our way into certain categories, but that was a big one to bear. So got off at 81 sophomore year, back to 6. Yeah.
Patrick, what were you in? What did you play?
My PGA Junior League number was 3. No, I played a little bit of baseball, hoops, until I went to a high school that's now number 1 nationally. So that doesn't really add up to me, who was 5 foot tall in freshman year. And then it was just golf. I didn't do junior league though, PJ. I was, kind of a Ricky Fowler, edgy type cat,
Is Fowler edgy?
Yeah.
Dude,
I thought he was like
he
the
rides dirt
sweetest guy
bikes,
around.
man.
Sure, yeah.
You kidding me?
That qualifies as edgy. There we go.
He's the most brand safe guy in the entire world. I'm not sure I would consider him.
Patrick played
A young
in
Ricky, a
Fox
young Ricky.
jersey, like the old Fox logoing.
Yeah,
That's great.
Exactly.
All
I was
right.
real quick. I was 23 for Robin Ventura, and then he got his butt kicked by Nolan Ryan,
Yeah.
and that was
Tough moment.
I was actually originally 21 because that's what he was at Oklahoma State. That's when I started loving him, and then he got to the White Sox.
Yep.
And he was 23, and so I changed to 23, and then Nolan Ryan bloodied him up, and it was kind of a tough look for me the rest of my
both
career.
retired.
Yeah.
We're gonna hit a break. We're gonna dive more into some topics that I have at hand. But wasn't it Robin Ventura who hit a walk-off grand slam and then stopped at first base?
Yeah, second, I think, with the Mets.
Yeah, because they were up by 1 or the down 1 or something like that. He hits a walk-off slam. They don't need the runs. He stops at second, gets credited for a double, right?
I think it was like
you don't kick the extra point at the end of the game here.
Yeah, it was. I think that was in the World Series when he was on the Mets. I think it was Mets
like
Yankees.
a national game, I thought, because I remember watching it thinking, now what? So he's had 2 very unique moments.
He was awesome. He had like a 58-game hitting streak in college. He was probably one of the 5 best college players ever.
Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Of course. Sure. All right. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to dive into some of the items that I have that I want to get Joe's thoughts and opinions on, but we're going to pay the bills first, and we'll see you on the other side.
Are you using a plunger to unclog the shake machine, as in the same plunger we use to unclog the toilet? No.
We're going to be opening Mega Good Burgers in cities all over the world.
Whoa. Megacorp wants to replace everybody with robots. We gotta do something. Here's your burger.
That's not soap, by the way. It's maple syrup.
Why?
And we're back. Quick anecdote here, Joe. I was in Costco the other day. I was looking at the new televisions as
They're going to see some new clubs.
As men do. Oh, okay. So they do. Yes.
There we go.
I need the Kirkland irons in a Costco near me. I think the driver has just started to hit some Costcos. That is growing the game, my friends. Growing the game via Kirkland signature golf clubs. I'm all about it.
Are you a big Costco boy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Big time. How could
Do
you
you eat there often when you go? You know,
Ever-
just a slice for the road type of deal.
So the first thing I do is grab a slice, eat the slice as you're walking around.
Yeah,
Really?
Pro play.
Yeah.
How often do you go? I'm sure people came for like Joe Musso junior year and Costco talk.
Robin Ventura, Costco. We're hitting all our bases here.
I would say once every 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. We've never gotten
A
into
lot of bar soap.
Yeah. I mean, we honestly, I don't even know if we buy that much, but we just like walk through the aisles, each one, and see, what's new, what's going on. It's unbelievable. I love it.
Ponder the strengths of American commerce.
Have you there's a podcast called Acquired that I listen to. I might have brought it up. They do deep dives on different companies. And Costco is one of them. And they do a deep dive on like, what are the financial, Patrick would love this right in his wheelhouse. What are the financials? How did they get to where they are? Why are they successful? What's the profit margin? Like deep.
Yeah.
dives.
So I'm pretty sure their profit margin is like fixed, right? So whatever cost of item is, they sell it at 15% more. And that's it. That's the whole game.
Yeah. I think that's right. And I think that they've built their business around that. I'm more Trader Joe's, but it gets expensive with all the kids.
Yeah, bougie boy.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Are you a Trader Joe's guy too?
I wouldn't even be seen in a Trader Joe's. No.
It scares me. It scares me personally.
Wait,
there's no organization in there. I can marinate my own food, and don't name Oreos something else. I'm not going to Trader Joe's.
Pop off.
We're done. We're done.
I feel like we might have had this talk. We need to get Joe with Greg. Greg goes to the grocery store. He said once a year.
I think Greg and I live 10 minutes from one another here. I am close to the Breed compound.
So Joe or Greg probably agrees with Joe about the lack of organization, because remember he said he walked into Trader Joe's and couldn't find where anything was, and he walked out.
Yeah.
Shout out to some locals here, Balducci's. I'm a Whole Foods guy, but I grew up in Chicago, and it was like, you have your deli where you go get your meats, you have your butcher where you go get your cuts, you have your fish place. So I found all of those. I don't want a one-stop shop. I want to go get my produce either at the farmer's market or Whole Foods. I want to get my meat at Dairy and Butcher Shop. Shout out. I want to get my fish at Greenwich Fish Market. Shout out. So you got to go find the place that does the thing the best and go get it there.
I think I like that. You're better situated for that. It's tough in the DFW area to
5 minutes here, 5 minutes there.
Drive all over. I've been into Central Market, which is sort of Whole Foods adjacent. That's like the nice HEB. So I do Central Market, Trader Joe's, and Sprouts are the three that I like.
You gotta have a good parking lot. That's where we start and stop. Good parking lot.
I don't want to go to all those stores individually, but I want my Joe Musso to go all to all.
You got it.
Stores. That's what I expect out of it. Also, but the point I was originally trying to make is smack in my face at the Costco TV section is this, Josh. You know where I'm going with this, right? Joe Musso, if you're watching, on his face
I throw truckers
all over these televisions because they're showing the smart TVs. You got the CBS Sports HQ app, Sherry Burris, Joe Musso. Who is that on the right?
That is Poppy Miller of Golasso and now Champions League fame. Shout out Poppy as well.
There you go. So Joe Musso, have you seen this in person? I'm sure people have sent you this.
I have not, but a dear friend of mine the Lopez family, Nicky Lopez, who I talk to you guys about often.
Yeah.
The Royals, got traded to the Braves late last season. Now a Chicago White Sox. Very exciting for everybody. I got a family picture from the Lopez's on Thanksgiving of them huddled around an 85-inch box with me on it. I was like, how big's that TV? The TV on the TV box looked like the size of a normal TV. So it does scale well too, I think is the point there.
That's
Beautiful.
incredible.
It's always good to get my extra Joe Musso fill when I go to college.
Have you ever seen yourself like at a restaurant or at a public place on HQ?
We get a lot of run at LaGuardia. Saw myself at LaGuardia. Sleep weary, had just gotten done the night before. Stuff was still running the next morning. I was already at the airport, so I kind of had a double take. A couple bars we've walked into in New York, and I don't know. Again, I want to give you guys space here to get to the golf topics, but that's like still a thing that's, I wouldn't say it's weird to me, but I don't know if it registers fully because I'm so focused in the process of the work that like I trust the product. I know when it comes out and when it feels good and when it doesn't. So I'm not I once heard Dan Patrick say it, and because early on in my career, I wanted to watch everything twice and get better from it. But like Dan Patrick came into or someone said this to Dan Patrick. It might have been Olbermann back in the old Sports Center days, came into the room. It was Dan Patrick watching the show that they had just finished. And he said to him, he goes, dude, you got the job. So I try, not that I'm detached from the product, but like I was there. I know what it was. So when I see it, it feels normal. I guess I haven't had that moment of, oh my gosh, it's us there. We've been on billboards. There's some video of us standing on the Bellagio fountains. I've gotten to do some really cool stuff through work, PGA championships. I mean, I go back often to sitting on the bench 12, long par 5 last year. 12 or 13?
10, 11. 13. I think it's 13. Yeah.
13. Where the elevated tee, where the duel happened, essentially, where the tournament was more or less decided when Brooks trickled that one in. I remember sitting on 13T, like sitting on a bench I probably shouldn't have been sitting on as the guys are teeing off 2 feet from me, drinking a water, and Victor comes over and reaches. Like just like those moments are the ones that more land on me of I am in the arena right now. J.R. Smith forgetting the score. I was standing baseline, not standing baseline, but just off the wood, getting ready to do a live shot because we thought the game was over. Like those are the things that stay with me, not the I saw me at LaGuardia.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, sorry, KP, go ahead, buddy.
Well, I was gonna say, have you experienced that, Rick?
Seeing myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. So bars, you know, when they get to the overnight like replay or whatever, bars, I've seen myself, and then I get texts about the gym. I think CBS Sports HQ runs at gyms quite frequently.
I usually people see you at the gym and like, man, that Rick.
Yeah, and I just I don't watch it. I don't want to go back and watch it. I just same thing. It's like I was there. I know what I said. Let's move on.
Sometimes I go back to see what I said.
Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah.
I want to talk about the product a little bit. You mentioned it earlier here, Joe, those kind of talkbacks with whether it's Tony Romo or Trevor. And I want to dive into that because it is pretty compelling content, right? The ability to get access to someone who just watched the event immediately after it ends and then go into some type of, whether it looks like a post-game show or something of that nature. Have you guys found that to be a successful way of retaining viewership?
Definitely. That's especially with football and them seeing Tony right away, because I think there's some awareness of who I am and what I do to our viewers that are there on a weekly basis. But if you're at someone's house and you're popping on Paramount Plus and you see some kid at a desk asking Tony Romo questions, you're not thinking about who's asking the question. You're, oh my God, it's Tony Romo. So Tony Romo is the retention. I totally understand that. Trevor Immelman is the retention, but the bosses have been thrilled by the numbers. And I think a big part of that is having 3 good questions, 4 or 5 good questions, depending on how much time they have in the holster to get something out of Tony that the broadcast did not already. Like Jim Nantz is going to get the in the moment reaction out of Tony Romo. Jim Nantz is going to get that out of Trevor. What can I add to that and not ask the question that was asked as they were coming down 18? How can I spin this forward a little bit and still not put, I don't want to put Tony Romo in a position to ask who he thinks is going to win the Super Bowl in week 15. It's just not, Like, it's not what you want to do. It's not the position he wants to be in. So knowing where to take it to get something useful out of this person and retain that audience and entertain that audience is one thing. It's another thing to prepare for that. Sometimes you feel like we're 14 holes in or we're halfway through the fourth quarter and it's like, I'm going to hit Tony with this, and this, and then everything changes. And being able to change with it and still drive that conversation somewhere entertaining is where I think I've grown. And I think that's what makes the product as entertaining as it is. You can't, it can't be heads in boxes. It can't be formulated. It's got to be a jib move. It's got to look as big as the moment is. Match the moment is one thing that I always try and do, because like even in just commanding my voice on a highlight, there are crazy finishes that need it. And there are games that just come to an end and they don't need it. And sometimes I'm always there. And you make the little one sound bigger than it is. So it's also matching the moment is kind of where my focus is at right now as we come down the stretch with the NFL.
How much of your question asking in a situation like that is dependent on what their answers are, and I guess how much is planned? Like, how many questions ahead are you in your head or written down, and then how much of it changes? How much do you audible based on what their previous answer was?
Quite often, because these people know more about the sport than I ever will. Like Tony Romo has watched, I could start watching tape now for the rest of my life. Tony Romo's watched more tape than that. And I'm in the film often. So I try and speak that person's language. I know how Tony likes to be teed up. I know where Trevor's willing to go and maybe where they don't want to go. Again, those are the two things. But KP, I know you get credited for this on the podcast often, and you should. The best question asked is always going to be one that's product of listening. Like you can't be thinking about question number 2 the second you hit the period on question number 1. Yeah. And this is what I think, and different people do it different way. My process is bullet points. I don't like certain things, intros, voiceovers. I have scripted, but Tony, Trevor, I'm trying to have a conversation. I want it to sound like a conversation. So if I'm scripting it and it's coming out of prompter, it's never going to feel that way. And you're going to be tied to those questions. So I have my bullet points. I know where I want to go, but if you leave crumbs out in front of me, like I'm going to either challenge you on something or take you where you were trying to go and didn't finish the thought that I think you can finish. So it's always an exercise in listening, even more than it is an exercise in asking.
I think you see that at like halftime or end of the game on-field interviews where sometimes somebody will leave something out there and and the interviewer won't take it. And I get it. Like, it's really hard in that specific moment when you've got 15 million people watching and you're oftentimes getting shorter answers maybe than you would get in a talkback. That's a very difficult thing. But man, I'm just like yelling, like, no, follow up with this. Like, like follow up with the thing that they want to talk about.
Inside baseball broadcasting. But in that scenario, because I see it all the time too, I try and read the person's face, because you can often see if someone's listening to who they're talking to, if they're listening to the voice in their ear, because sometimes question is asked and a producer's got to give you traffic for the next 5 minutes of, hey, 2 more with Tony, wrapping Paramount Plus promo into Ravens highlight into chat with BMAC. I'm getting all of that while I'm trying to listen to Tony too. Yeah. So you have to be able to split brain it and listen to 2 things at once so you don't miss that stuff. And sometimes you can see someone's doing an interview and they're looking at the person, but their eyes or their brain is somewhere completely different. It's like, oh, you're missing the gold. You're missing the gold.
Yeah.
That's insane. I can, like, even when I'm on and like the difference in timing is like half a second, I get all thrown out of whack. All thrown out of whack. But you mentioned like Dan Patrick and Olbermann and some of these other guys who, like, growing up were you like, I want to be, hone my craft sort of after this guy? Was there anyone? Is there still anyone?
So early 90s, I was born in 90. So like 95 through my childhood was the last 3 Bulls championships, was Chicago sports. That was the center of the universe, or at least to a 6-year-old, it was. Mark Giangreco was our local voice that really, I think I took to early. Anchorman, biggest dude in the city, table at Chicago cut, like that sort of ideal of Anchorman always appealed to me, I think. So Giangreco on a local stage. But growing up, then it was your Van Pelts, it was your Stu Scotts, it was your Kenny Maynes, your Dan Patricks, your Mike Tirico's, your Jim Nance's. And I've been lucky enough to shake hands, speak to, and create relationships with some of those people. And I think that that's only emboldened me to be like, hey, I had a lot of people when I was working at Comcast Sportsnet as a production assistant too, Pat Boyle, David Kaplan, who, when I started talking to them comfortably about this ambition, they're like, go do it. You can do it. I've never been the person of like, I did it for the haters. It's like, no, everybody told me I could, so I did. That's kind of been my approach to things. Now you have found a hater or two here along the way, and we like them too. But like, it's more of a, I know I can, so why not? Has always been the thing. To, hey, you've been introduced to these people that you used to idolize. Don't use that moment to look at them starry-eyed. Use that moment to ask a question and make sure that they remember you, or at least try to as much as you can.
I find it so interesting that the complementary sports of golf and football, right? They kind of run in different seasons. They are each once a week, but the way that they are, I don't want to say portrayed, but covered is vastly different, Joe. And that's not limited to CBS Sports HQ. That's everybody, right? We talk about the pregame show, the postgame show that you get for the NFL. Like where are the opportunities in golf to take a little bit of blueprint from the big boys over at the NFL and make some improvements?
It's a really good question.
How long do we have here?
Well, the products are so vastly different. And in some of I have notebooks filled with just sequenced thought, just stuff that pops into my head. And one of the things that I've been trying to mull over, like the PGA Tour, obviously from an organizational, from a marketing, from a product standpoint, is flawed. And we're seeing a lot of those flaws right now. But I think golf, post Tiger, for as much as they've been resting on whatever they've been resting on as an organization, you know what you're getting from a product, and a consistent product is a good product. Like commercials are an issue. The NLU boys do no one does any better work than them on that, and sort of debriefing these tournaments where we can't get the flow. That's what the NFL does well. The NFL gives you the flow of the game. And I think even in recent years, they've done a much better job. And yeah, you're getting your commercials after a punt or this, but late in game, it's like, no, we're going to stay here and we're going to have the guys talk while the offense comes out onto the field. Like some of that's knowing when to run the commercial. And yeah, you get your hour commercial free presented by Rolex or whatever it may be. But like, I guess the point I'm making is golf as a product to me was very enjoyable. Like prior to all of this, like I loved laying on the couch and I remember clearly falling out of the couch for certain Tiger moments, like holing out at, what was it, Arnie, Greenside. Like I remember those, like they've given us these moments. We don't have to drastically change things. We can tweak, because I think a big part of what the disconnect is between Live and the PGA Tour is a branding thing. Like it feels like you're going to Dave & Buster's when you turn Live on, like the scoreboards, everything's coming at you so fast. I don't think that's what golf fans want. And I don't think that that's growing the game per se. The whole fracturing of the game is clear. And I think it's well outlined by the lack of grandstanding that the Live voices have done in this most recent. It felt like the Rahm signing was quiet from that side almost. It was like, yeah, we signed another one, we're going to keep doing it type thing. Like KP, you could probably speak to like the Twitter static. I felt like there was less Twitter static this time around because everybody's aware that this is a negotiation happening right now. This isn't the galvanization of two separate tours. That's not what's happening. So, I mean, I guess to go down that road, we could again keep going further, but from a product standpoint, tweaks. I like professional golf. I like the way that CBS presents the product. These last 3 years on CBS, the camera angles we've been getting, the walk-in talks, like things are getting better. The macro is falling apart under its own weight, but like the product that I turn on, the product that I ingest for 15 hours a weekend, probably on average, I was enjoying it.
Well, I think one thing that you said, Joe, is really interesting. It's something that we've touched on a little bit here, Rick and Patrick, which is and I was yelling about this before Live, and I've gotten kind of, I haven't gone back to it very often because it seemed, I not irrelevant. It just seemed less important now. But I actually think it is important as it relates to the commercials and the money and like the expectations from players about the money they should be earning, right? Which is that in a post-Tiger world, I don't know that that your expectation as a league, as a player, is for the revenue to just go like this, right? To just keep going up and up and up. Like maybe, but I think in a post-Tiger world, it's like, oh, that was such a, Halley's Comet type thing, like a once in a lifetime type thing, that I don't know if that's what golf is. It might be, but I think we entered into this like weird sort of purgatorial era with Tiger where he's kind of still there, but kind of not. And the TV contracts were so big still, like way beyond what they were in the last go around. And because that was the expectation from players, right? It's like, yo, your job is to go negotiate as the PGA Tour with CBS, with NBC, with ESPN, with all these places to make us more money. Well, guess who suffers from that?
Yeah.
The fan who watches CBS, NBC, and ESPN. And the players don't care about that. I mean, they do to an extent, but not really, you know
who else does, like, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't care about it, but I can't care about it. I'm trying to think of the question to ask Trevor, like I'm trying to be in the moment and in preparation. And I know we got to get to a break here, Rick, but quickly, in preparation off the little prompt that Rick gave me, I went back to your guys' podcast, your top 5 moments of 2023. Can you guess how many of those moments are, I would put it this way, in jeopardy due to maybe all of them, but your top moments: Tom Kim in the mud, Rory at the Scottish, Fitz and Spieth's duel, Wyndham's twirl, 30-something holes at Augusta between 2 live boys, but they'll be there next year too. Rick, yours were Blocky's ace. Feel somewhat responsible for that. Nick Taylor at the RBC. I have BDV at the BMW. That's Vic's win at the BMW. Cat Signal while we were in Phoenix. Ricky Rose Day and Keegan Resurgence. What if that list isn't going to be there next year? It's all still there. It's the stories that we tell that I'm worried about. Make space for us to tell the stories about Nick Taylor. So when he holds the 70-footer at his Nations Open and Jim Nantz gives you glorious and free, that the hairs stand up on the back of your neck. That's what it's about. I don't care about your contracts or who's getting what or how rich you are or what Rolls Royce you're driving. Just like I've never been, to go back to Tiger in turmoil, I've never been my moral compass has never been dictated off of what my professional athletes do or don't do. Yes, I want them to be good people. I'm there to tell the story of the good person. And in some cases, the story of the fallen hero. But it's about the story. And you guys did 10 topics right there, none of which I think you would have said at the beginning of the season you were expecting. And those were your biggest moments. Like, we're going to get great moments again this year on CBS and everywhere else because that's what this sport does. That's what context does. That's what competition does. That's what the PGA Tour has.
The storytelling is definitely something that we like right now. That's the stuff that we remember. Patrick, put a pin in that. We're going to continue this conversation, but first we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
And we're back. Patrick, I cut you off there. Did you want to jump in?
Oh, I was just going to say, I can't believe you put Blocky's ace on your top moments of the year. It was a true, the calls coming from inside the house situation.
That's a moment. That's a I won't forget it moment. Roar comes up from what felt like a mile away, but like ground almost shook. And everyone's like, what's going on Twitter? Because it's late in the tournament. Anyone who's been out there, connectivity stinks. I'm refreshing. I see whatever I saw on Twitter, whoever had tweeted it first. And everyone's still wondering what's going on. And I turned to KVV and I go, Blocky made a 1. And he told me, shut the F up. That's my recollection of the Blocky ace.
It was so like I wrote this in the book, Rick. That can't happen. Like
As we're walking up 13 with that moment right in front of us.
Not only is like the odds of getting into the PGA as a PGA pro, the odds of making a cut as a PGA pro, the odds of getting the number 2 player in the world as a PGA pro just in the final round randomly, and then you make a 1 on the back 9 in front of him.
And then the odds that he's not a crusher yet, that's even more impressive.
That, admittedly, that is the biggest upset of all of this.
I mean, that just feels like the whole like we live in a simulation thing. I've never felt more like that than Blocky making a 1.
Oh man. To loop in the context, the storytelling, Joe, you had mentioned your background in writing, and I think that those are most apparent on those pieces that you do. What do you call those?
Cold opens, voiceover pieces, a place for me to be more flowery than I can be in the structure of television.
So these are a minute or 2 leading into something where Joe is voicing over something about the Open Championship or the Army Navy game, and it's meant to get you excited or to get the hair on the back of your neck to stand up, as Joe said. But the crazy part about it is that you write all those, Joe. Like you write a script and then execute it.
I think it's the beloved first lady of the First Cut podcast.
It took her a while to believe that you actually wrote them, and now she's like big in on it.
It's first of all, Joe's amazing at it. Second of all, I think it's such an advantage. Like it's so I've written those before for other places and people who did other people who did the voiceover. It's so helpful, Joe, I think, and you can speak to this, to be able to write for your own voice, right? To write for yourself and then know, like, as you're reading or as you're voicing it, okay, this is where I wanted to hit that inflection. This is what I wanted to do here. Do you think about that as you're writing?
Definitely. I write first. It's the words. I'll get it down and then I'll read it aloud a couple times. And anything that comes to mind right off the bat is, and this is to totally shorten the writing process of it, but anything that comes to mind after it's written or the first version of it is written, I annotate the whole thing essentially of like where I want emphasis, and not just for me in my read when I voice it, but also for the editor when they edit this, because like I have a production background. I told you guys I did local news. I was in a full suit at Husker games on the sideline with the camera on my shoulder, then flipping around like one-man banding, like editing, producing. It's all the basis from which I come at this from. So I have a pretty concise vision in my head of what I want the final product to look like. Sometimes, most of the time that's helpful. Sometimes that's not. But in these pieces, like just sitting down with the editor and collaborating in that sense is, I think, how we get the best version of it. Because like if I was to just sit there and monotone read the words, they don't hit the way that they do when they're edited or performed the proper way. But no, those started just as like a way to get Kyle to notice me. That's what that was. So,
it worked.
I think we've worked. I think that's worked. And
we've arrived, baby. We're here.
Just pounded out an Army Navy one last week that was met with some kind words by those within the CBS sports structure. So happy about that one. And they'll keep coming for playoffs here with the NFL. We'll have a couple each round. Super Bowl, of course, and then we'll be on to the majors. It's hard. Augusta's hard. I will say this because I've done 3 for the Masters now, I believe, 2 or 3, and they've all been their own thing. And the COVID one coming out of COVID was, I think, the most powerful one because it could just be written so in a way that we're dealing with something that we're not often here. But because it's Augusta every year, it is the pageantry and the circumstance that we're well aware of. To be original within that is already something that's in my brain.
Well, looking forward, the Super Bowl obviously going to be a massive event for everybody, but a massive event for you. You already mentioned it. I've seen the photo shoot, you and Tommy Tran out on the Bellagio fountains. I've seen the blueprints of where I guess the stages are going to be set up, essentially on the water at the Bellagio. I cannot even fathom how crazy that's going to be in Las Vegas.
I think we're taking over the street. I don't know if we're on the wall. I don't even know if we can. There's been some CAD images floating around here that are very exciting. I'll leave it at that.
Well, it feels like, F1 and what they did to the strip. It's just like this massive production, and you're going to be right in the center of it.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be able to do that. Last year was quote unquote my first on-site Super Bowl. We were at Waste Management, popped over to the NFL set for a couple minutes here and there, but this feels like my first Super Bowl, and it's a CBS Super Bowl, and it's Vegas, and it's going to be some collection of drama and amazing teams. And I think that if you're asking me right now, 49ers Ravens is the low-hanging fruit for everybody. 49ers Bills is what I see. Don't sleep on those Bills. 18-1 number yesterday. The AFC is a absolute dumpster fire right now. Like there's talent there, but like point to me the team that you trust. Is it Lamar Jackson's one playoff win? Because I love Lamar and I want to see him succeed in the playoffs, but like they have that, oh, we didn't show day in the divisional round and you go home. Mahomes' Chiefs, I think, are still going to be relevant. They're going to be there. I trust Josh Allen to get things right. You saw a little of it last week, and I think there's a couple tests down the road, Miami, that are going to embolden them to make like a serious run here. The wild card picture is so jam-packed. They're the team, I think, that emerges from it, makes it via the wild card, and then starts bashing heads.
You think they get in instead of my Pittsburgh Steelers and your Mitchell Trubisky?
I do. My sweet Mitch, for as much as I root for him. And I sit there and I watch football every weekend with Bryant McFadden, 2-time Super Bowl champ with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I get the Steelers slant and I get a good pulse of where the fan base is at. And like, you just can't win without a quarterback. You got 3 quarterbacks. And like, again, full pot on this, but quarterback evaluate. There needs to be a referendum on quarterback evaluation because you got Jake Browning, Folsom High School, stand up, coming out of nowhere and playing the way he does. Josh Dobbs, you get 4 good weeks out of him. Like the fact that there's guys floating around, Joe Flacco off his couch, which he wanted to do. He didn't want to be at camp anywhere. He's 100 years old. But like the fact that these guys are
literally my age.
Yeah. The fact that these guys are filling 100. In like third guys off the bench, off the street, and your backup can't move the ball down the field. There needs to be a reevaluation on the way we are evaluating quarterback prospects.
It was setting up so nicely, Rick, for my Bengals to just roll through, and then Burrow just
definitely. But Rick, it's going to be exciting. If anyone's out there in Vegas, come say hello on set. You know, we love seeing folks out in the wild, and we're gonna do some fun stuff. There are some ideas floating around that are very exciting, both for the entire product and for myself personally on Super Bowl Sunday. We'll see if they come to fruition, but I'm just excited to be out there at my first on-site Super Bowl and make some magic happen, because that's, you know, it's not to get again too heady, but it's all an opportunity. Every time you guys turn these mics on and do the First Cut podcast, it's an opportunity for the clip. It's an opportunity for the moment. It's an opportunity for something. Like when the light goes on, that's the opportunity. And that's a big red light in Vegas.
I assume the tease that you're excited for and hoping for is being on site for Live Las Vegas, which is the same weekend.
That's it. We're going to get out there. We're going to
he's in the Pro-Am.
Tickets on sale today, actually.
So, LVCC 3-day pass, $180 for.
You know, who would you want to play in the Pro-Am with, Joe?
Pro-Am I still am much like my relationship with Mitch. I'm a DJ apologist. I just he seems like he'd slide into, and this is going to be a judgment of now my friend group. He'd slide into my friend group pretty easily. Boats, beers, relaxing, like that sort of vibe, where we're at in our early mid 30s here. That's like, we're on a DJ vibe right now, me and my friend.
DJ kind of exists on a plane above Live. Like, I don't even really think of
that's
him
true
as a Live guy.
Did you want to hear Pat Perez? Is that what you wanted me to say?
No.
Talk shoes.
Please don't.
I think Bryson's the answer. He's
both of us like to talk. I don't know if that'd work.
If you want to listen.
You're going to see him do weird stuff or great stuff, which would be cool. Brooks would be fun to watch, but he would never even acknowledge your existence.
Yeah. It's a networking. It's a Pro-Am. It's a networking opportunity. Whose network do you want to be a part of?
Not Brooks's.
The Gretzky family seems pretty interesting to me. The Johnson estate. Whatever's going on over there.
Bryson, I wouldn't be able to connect with Rick.
That's
he would just talk through me.
Yeah.
And I feel like with DJ and maybe even Brooks, if you came at it from the right angle, I think especially DJ, I think you could like get in there a little bit.
Maybe Rombo just to see if he's blinked yet.
I'll ask Bryson for some YouTube tips.
There you go.
Yeah.
See if
Yo,
we
what I
break
wanted to ask you this before we go, just about golf. What you've been out there, we've done on site. It's super fun. What, when you're out there, or even when you're watching on TV, like what gets you going? Besides Minwoo leading, obviously, but like what gets the juices going from a professional and personal standpoint?
Yeah, it's still star driven. I think we'd be lying to ourselves if you looked at the leaderboard and it's like 5 dudes and a couple Maz or a couple of those. Like you lean towards the dudes because the story to tell. I remember after Brooks won and we were having a beer in the hotel lobby, KP, you just over and over like, and it turned into your piece. And it might have been actually right after you wrote your piece. Like 5 is so many.
So
like, and I'm as a kid growing up, like maybe it's because I'm a part of the Madden generation, but like I liked playing with Manning's Patriots, or in 2K, I like playing with Kobe's Lakers. Like I've always rooted for the story. I've always rooted for the dynasty. I've always rooted for the furthering of, isn't it so cool what we're seeing, and not the like one-off, what does this mean? And I'm really interested to see what Wyndham Clark does this year. But like, were we all sitting there rooting for Wyndham Clark last year at LACC?
No.
Like so when I'm sitting there, it's still very much story star driven. But I love being surprised. That's where the best story comes from, when you're taken off guard by the story and then find a way to tell it, because you could come in with a million good ideas and the best one might slap you in the face with 30 minutes left in the tournament. So it's being open to that entire process. And the more we get on site, I mean, seeing the build out at Phoenix, seeing people bundled up at Rochester and then work through the rain, and then it's the middle of the summer, like just you get to touch so much more, you get to feel so much more. And then it's our job to try and convey all of that in a concise package to a viewer. Can we? No, but like the impact of rain or the impact of whatever that independent variable is oftentimes where the story is. So being on site has, I think, allowed me to grow in that space and be more open to the idea of, hey, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's the best part about it.
Yeah. We're going to put a pin in it there. Hopefully, and almost surely not the last time we talk to Joe Musso on the First Cut podcast. Joe, appreciate you popping on.
Oh, that's nice.
We've already, the meme generator is already in full effect. We appreciate your time, your effort, your support. We appreciate everything.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. I was going to do the mock neck, but it felt like a bit much here for my first, for my first visit.
I mean, honestly, this should be like, just do like a cutout of Joe, and that should be Minwoo's logo.
I do look like I'm about to go like really. I felt like I was just like about to go address like a group of men who are about to like face some sort of strife. Like that's a serious look on that face. I didn't feel like I was that serious. You know how I said I don't like going back and watching the tape. This is the tape that I don't like going back and watching.
If you throw a chef's hat on, that's the logo.
Exactly.
Let him cook, baby.
I did have, me being the note taker that I am, really enjoyed your guys' favorite normal sport moments, and congratulations, Kyle, on the 3rd volume. Working through it right now. I'm somewhere in the 30s. Cracked that open yesterday. Slow reader. But it's not a normal sport moment, but a moment that I think about often was, so long story short here, because I know we're tying it up, but met Rory for the first time, like shook Rory's hand for the first time. I'd seen him and been places in his midst before, but shook Rory's hand the first time upon Kyle's introduction at Waste Management in Phoenix. We walked about 3 or 4 holes with him, most down to earth, normal guy you'll ever meet, like everyone attests to. We get out there in Rochester, same thing, Wednesday, walk in, and me and Kyle dip under the ropes, joined up on somewhere on the back, and, kind of nasty out there. Everyone's going about their business, and Kyle walks up to Rory. I'm in Kyle's pocket, where you should be when you're on site at a tournament, of course. I got free Pro V1s out of it in Orlando, but we walk up to Rory, and Kyle, being the, having the relationship he does with Rory, shakes his hand, says hello, and then turns, like opens his shoulders to me and goes, "Rory, you remember Joe?" And I just like I shook his hand as if like, yeah, like Rory remembers Joe. Or he might even give me like, you remember Joe Musso. And Rory being the sweetheart that he is. That's what's going on. Good to see you, this and that. I couldn't have been more, and I'm comfortable around everybody. Like Frank Thomas was the only person to ever make me uncomfortable because he was on my walls. And when I met him for the first time, that was tough. I scurried away from Rory and Kyle quicker than I ran over to Claire Rogers just to like start talking to someone else because I felt like, and so after they get done talking, Kyle comes back over to me and Claire, and I go, Kyle, here's one thing, like, don't ever ask Rory if he remembers me. I go, you introduce me to Rory McIlroy every single time we see him from now until forever. Like, don't you ever put Rory or me in that position where he's got to pretend like he knows who I am and I got to pretend like he's pretending to know who I am. It was that's I get a laugh about that one quite regularly. That was my normal job moment of the year.
The kicker to that, Patrick, is I saw Rory later in the year, and Joe and I had talked about this multiple times, and we were talking about watches. Rory's a big watch guy, Joe Musso, big watch guy. And I literally said out loud, mostly to amuse myself, you remember Joe Musso? He's a big watch guy.
Without Joe even around, right?
Yeah. Did he pretend with me not in person or no? He gave me who the hell is Joe Musso?
Of course, sure. Yeah.
Well, we know Rory's a listener here. So Rory's, if you've made it to the 10110, you're a true listener. I appreciate you.
For sure.
Yeah. He's not firing off those tweets recently.
Oh yeah, he's back, baby.
Back. I'm ready. Big thanks to producer Josh, who does all the hard work behind the scenes. Special thank you to Joe Musso, who you can find on Twitter/X at Moose on Air, Patrick McDonald at Pat McDonald CBS, Kyle Porter at Kyle Porter CBS. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.